Imagine sitting in your car, looking at the steering wheel, and suddenly it starts spinning at 1,000 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Right. Completely on its own. Navigating traffic with like perfect precision while you're just sitting there in the passenger seat watching it happen.
That is a terrifying image, honestly.
It is, but that is exactly what is happening to the concept of human control in corporate retail right now. I mean, usually when we talk about a business making a decision, there is this deeply ingrained expectation of manual intervention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Somewhere in a corporate office,
Yeah.
a person is looking at a spreadsheet and physically clicking a button that says approve.
Right. It's a very deliberate, highly visible action. And honestly, it provides a massive psychological safety net for people.
Oh, for sure.
We inherently like to feel that there is a human hand on the steering wheel, especially when, revenue is on the line. But the reality of commerce today is that the sheer volume and velocity of decisions being made, like every single second, is just completely overwhelming those traditional manual processes.
Which means that steering wheel is spinning way faster than human hands can possibly track.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we are exploring today. We are looking at a massive operational shift happening across the whole business landscape. We are doing a deep dive into a highly timely piece published just today, actually, March 24th, 2026.
That off the presses.
Exactly. It's on LinkedIn by Shish S. And it's titled, From Approval to Autonomy, Building a Trust Layer for Agentic Retail.
It's such an essential read because it tackles the exact tension that almost every major organization is wrestling with at this very moment. Like in all the conversations happening right now with retailers about these agentic systems. And by that, I mean systems where the AI doesn't just, generate a text summary, but actually takes concrete action in the real world.
Right. Doing actual stuff.
Exactly. The primary challenge there is no longer technical. The AI technology is perfectly capable of acting. The real hurdle is organizational psychology.
Wow.
Yeah, businesses are just desperately trying to figure out how much control they are actually willing to hand over to a machine.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore how retail, and really the entire supply chain, is moving from this world where humans check every single AI decision to a world where AI agents operate autonomously across entire ecosystems. And maybe more importantly, how you actually build the underlying trust required to let them do that without, inviting total chaos. Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, we really have to start by looking at where most companies are stuck right now. Because of that hesitation to fully hand over the keys we just talked about, we are currently living in what the author calls the humans in the loop phase.
Humans in the loop. Got it.
Right. Trust is literally being constructed one single decision at a time. The autonomous agents analyze the data, they formulate a strategy, they prepare the action.
But then they stop.
Exactly, they stop.
Huh.
Human judgment sits directly at the center of execution as this massive bottleneck.
Okay, let's visualize what this actually looks like on the ground. Say with a pricing decision. You have an AI agent, and it's continuously scraping just a massive amount of data.
Oh, mountains of it.
Yeah, pulling in real-time demand signals, evaluating competitor pricing across the entire web, checking your current warehouse inventory positions, and based on all that math, it recommends a price adjustment.
Right.
But it doesn't just execute the change. A human merchant has to physically log in, review that recommendation, make sure it doesn't violate some unwritten brand constraint, and then actually hit approve before that new price goes live.
Exactly. And you see that exact same bottleneck over in supply chain logistics, too. Take inventory rebalancing.
Okay.
An AI agent might detect that you have a massive surplus of, say, winter coats sitting in a fulfillment center in the Northeast. But a sudden cold snap is driving unprecedented demand out in the Midwest.
So the AI sees that mismatch.
Right. The agent instantly calculates the logistics costs and proposes a transfer plan to maximize the margin. But again, a human planner is required to open the dashboard, validate the machine's assumptions, and manually authorize those trucks to move.
It's almost like having the world's most brilliant intern.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like they do all the heavy lifting. They research the market, they draft the perfect strategic response, they cross-reference all the historical data. But at the end of the day, you still demand to read the email and click send yourself before it goes out to the client.
Yeah, and that intern model works incredibly well for where the technology was maybe a year or two ago. It gives the organization control, it provides a very clear chain of accountability, and importantly, it builds confidence.
Because you get to see them get it right.
Precisely. The merchandising and logistics teams are slowly learning that the machine's math is actually usually right, but they are doing it with a safety net securely in place.
But that intern model, I mean, it creates a massive false sense of security, doesn't it? It feels great right up until that brilliant intern starts handing you 10,000 emails a second and asking you to click send on every single one of them.
Yes. Which brings us to the operational breaking point. As these AI models mature, the volume and frequency of their decisions increase exponentially. We are no longer talking about a daily price adjustment or a weekly inventory rebalance.
Right. It's not a once-a-day thing anymore.
Not at all. We are talking about continuous, relentless optimization. You have a retail media agent that is adjusting advertising bids continuously all day long, reacting to every microshift in web traffic or some sudden viral social media trend.
Wow.
You have that pricing agent responding to demand signals in near real time. You have an inventory agent constantly rebalancing stock across an incredibly complex network of stores, dark stores, and third-party fulfillment nodes.
So when you reach that level of scale, I mean, physically reviewing every single action isn't just tedious. It becomes mathematically impossible.
Exactly. The sheer volume breaks the human approval mechanism entirely.
But wait, hold on. I know exactly what anyone running a retail operation is thinking right now.
What's that?
Well, if we just stop checking the AI's work because there's simply too much of it, aren't we just flying blind? Doesn't that invite a catastrophic mistake?
What's the ultimate fear?
Yeah. I mean, if a pricing algorithm hallucinates and drops the price of a $1,000 television to $10 and there's no human there to catch it, you can bankrupt a company in an afternoon.
It is the absolute nightmare scenario for a retail executive, which is exactly why that hesitation exists. But here's the flip side. By insisting on reviewing everything to prevent that nightmare, you are actively introducing a completely different and arguably more insidious kind of risk.
What's that?
The cost of delay. At a certain scale, that safety net begins to choke the business.
Oh, because the AI has formulated the perfect competitive response, but it has to wait 4 hours for the regional manager to finish a meeting and click approve.
Exactly. And in those 4 hours, the opportunity is just gone. If your competitor's AI is adjusting prices in real time without human intervention, and your AI is trapped in an approval queue, you lose the sale.
Right, they beat you to it.
Every time. You are bleeding market share and revenue simply because your operational cadence is too slow. So teams are ultimately forced to look at their dashboards and ask a terrifying question. Which of these decisions can we actually trust to run entirely on their own?
So wait, this raises an important question. How do you solve this massive scale problem without just completely letting go of the steering wheel and hoping for the best?
Well, the operating model itself has to shift. It has to move from having humans in the loop, like we talked about, to having humans on the loop.
On the loop?
Yes. You stop approving individual actions and you start defining overarching policies.
Okay, this is such a critical distinction. You aren't removing humans from the equation at all. You are elevating them to architects rather than operators.
Yeah.
So instead of driving the car for the AI, we are essentially setting up the guardrails on the highway. We are bowling with the bumpers up.
I love that. Bowling with the bumpers up.
Right. The AI agent, the bowling ball, it can roll down the lane as fast as it possibly can. It might bounce back and forth, exploring different optimization strategies, but it is physically incapable of going into the gutter because we have locked the bumpers securely in place.
That bumper analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of policy-driven autonomy. A pricing team stops looking at individual price changes. Instead, they code strict parameters into the agent. Hard price floors, maximum ceilings, non-negotiable margin requirements.
So we give it boundaries.
Exactly. The AI is free to adjust prices 100 times a minute if it wants to, but if its algorithm suggests a price that hits that floor, the system physically prevents the action.
And we see the exact same architectural shift across the rest of the business, too. Supply chain teams stop authorizing individual truck movements. They define broad transfer thresholds, maximum logistics spend limits, and, required minimum service levels for key regions.
Yes.
And marketing teams, they stop approving individual ad bids. They establish hard daily spend limits and rigid brand safety guidelines.
So execution becomes continuous. The agents operate at the speed of the machine, while human oversight shifts to something highly intentional. The human's job is no longer to roll the ball.
Right.
The human's job is to monitor the final score, adjust the position of the bumpers based on macro strategy, and only step in to manage highly unusual exceptions that fall outside the defined rules.
While that clearly solves the speed and scale problem,
Hmm.
I mean, it requires a massive psychological leap.
Huge.
To walk away and let the agent bowl, you need absolute, unwavering confidence that the agent won't somehow jump the guardrails. You have to trust the bumpers implicitly.
Which is relatively straightforward to achieve when you are operating entirely inside the walled garden of a single enterprise.
Because it's your stuff.
Exactly. You control the AI model, you control the proprietary data it trains on, and you control the server architecture. You built the bowling alley, so you know the bumpers are bolted down.
But commerce doesn't happen in a vacuum. I mean, what happens when your AI agent needs to negotiate a complex logistics deal with a completely different company's AI agent?
Hmm.
You don't control their code, and you certainly don't have access to their servers.
And that is the exact boundary problem where the entire system currently hits a brick wall. Extending this policy-driven trust beyond the walls of a single enterprise is incredibly difficult because modern commerce is just so deeply intertwined.
Let's break down how complex these multi-party scenarios get in practice. Think about just a standard inventory transfer. It rarely just involves moving a box from your warehouse to your store. A single transfer might involve you as the brand, a third-party logistics provider who actually owns and drives the truck, a separate warehousing partner, and a retail marketplace that ultimately sells the item to the consumer.
Right. Or look at the retail media space, which is exploding right now. A single localized advertising transaction could involve a consumer packaged goods brand, the grocery retailer hosting the digital ad, and an entirely separate external technology platform that is actually managing the programmatic bid in real time.
Wow, so you have 3 or 4 different AI agents representing entirely different corporate entities with competing interests, all interacting and negotiating at lightning speed.
Exactly. And every single participant in that chain needs absolute assurance.
Makes sense.
The brand needs to know the ad was displayed correctly. The retailer needs to know they're getting paid their exact cut. The tech platform needs to verify the bid constraints. And today, trust across these boundaries is built on a very fragile foundation. We're talking traditional contracts, clunky software, API integrations, and incredibly painful manual reconciliation.
Which usually looks like, what, armies of accountants from 3 different companies emailing spreadsheets back and forth at the end of the month,
Oh, yeah.
arguing over whose dashboard is right because the numbers never match perfectly.
Exactly. Those traditional mechanisms were designed for discrete, human-speed, one-off transactions. They instantly shatter under the pressure of continuous autonomous execution by AI agents operating thousands of times a minute.
Right, you can't keep up.
You cannot have autonomous agents executing real-time supply chain adjustments if the financial settlement requires a 30-day manual audit. It just doesn't work.
The entire ecosystem needs a shared trust model that operates at the exact same speed as the AI.
Hmm.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the technological solution to this massive cross-enterprise bottleneck comes from a sector that enterprise retail has traditionally viewed with a whole lot of skepticism.
Yes, the programmable trust layer, built entirely on Web3 capability.
Okay, hold on. You're telling me the future of enterprise retail supply chains and corporate marketing budgets relies on blockchain?
I am.
Every time I hear blockchain, I just think of volatile crypto tokens and speculative bubbles. Why would a massive, risk-averse enterprise retailer ever touch that technology for their core operations?
It is the most common and natural reaction, honestly, but you have to completely separate the underlying architecture from the speculative casino of cryptocurrency.
Okay.
We are not talking about a retailer buying digital coins. We are talking about utilizing the actual plumbing of Web3. A programmable foundation for trust built on smart contracts and a shared immutable ledger.
So let's strip away the buzzwords and look at the actual mechanics of how this works. You mentioned smart contracts. This is how you take those bumpers, the human policies we discussed earlier, and encode them directly into an execution layer that spans multiple companies.
Exactly. Think of a smart contract like a digital vending machine.
A vending machine.
Yeah. With a physical vending machine, if you put in the exact right amount of money and press the button for a soda, the machine automatically dispenses the drink.
Right.
There is no human clerk sitting inside checking if your coin is real or deciding whether or not to give you the soda. The rules are pre-programmed and the execution is automatic and guaranteed by the mechanics of the machine.
So applied to our multi-party inventory scenario, you write a smart contract that explicitly defines the rules of engagement. It states exactly when a product transfer is allowed between the retailer and the logistics partner, what the specific pricing constraints are when it hits the destination market, and the exact mathematical formula for how every single partner is compensated.
Spot on. And once that contract is deployed to the blockchain, it becomes immutable. It cannot be secretly altered by the logistics provider to increase their margin, and it cannot be ignored by the retailer.
Because the math enforces it.
Exactly. The AI agents operate entirely within these mathematical rules. If the agent inputs the exact agreed-upon data that satisfies all conditions, the transaction, whether that's moving a physical box or transferring the funds, executes instantly. If even one condition fails, the vending machine doesn't dispense. It halts.
So the rules are negotiated by humans once, and then they are enforced with absolute mathematical consistency forever, without anyone having to manually audit the terms of the agreement every time a truck leaves the loading dock.
What's fascinating here is how this completely upends how corporate finance and supply chain teams think about data. In current enterprise architecture, companies are obsessed with gathering more data to figure out where things went wrong.
Oh, totally. More dashboards, more analytics.
Right. But when you move to a Web3 architecture, it boils down to a much simpler, far more profound requirement. Agreement on what happened actually matters infinitely more than having access to additional analytical data.
Agreement on what happened. I want to pause on that because it completely flips the current corporate model. Right now, every company builds their own massive siloed database and defends it fiercely.
Yes, they do.
But if your database says a shipment arrived at 2 p.m. and the logistics company's database says it arrived at 4 p.m., all that expensive data is entirely useless because you still have to put two humans on a phone to argue about who is right.
Precisely. You don't need a more expensive internal dashboard. You just need to know that your dashboard is looking at the exact same reality as your partner's dashboard. That is the core function of the shared ledger.
Ah, okay.
When an AI agent executes an action that spans multiple companies moving inventory, executing a media bid, settling a payment, that outcome is mathematically verified and captured on a timestamp block that is perfectly visible to all authorized participants simultaneously.
It's basically the difference between two people sitting in separate rooms, drawing their own maps of a city and arguing over where the roads connect, versus both of them working together on a single, locked Google Doc. Every single keystroke is tracked, time-stamped, and visible to both parties instantly.
And because it relies on cryptographic consensus, it is an immutable record. The value of that shared reality is just staggering. It means those armies of accountants arguing over spreadsheets at the end of the month, they are no longer necessary. The reconciliation process is functionally eliminated because everyone's numbers already match. They are all reading from the same ultimate source of truth.
That shared mathematical reality dramatically increases the confidence required to let these AI agents run at full speed.
Okay.
But there is one final, crucial piece to this puzzle. If these AI agents are out in the wild, executing smart contracts and moving millions of dollars on behalf of a brand, you need absolute certainty regarding exactly who they represent.
Yes. Identity and ownership are the foundational bedrock of this system. In a Web3 environment, each autonomous agent is cryptographically linked to a specific authorized corporate entity.
It's got an ID badge.
Exactly. It carries a digital signature that proves unequivocally that it has the authority to act on behalf of the retailer, complete with clearly defined permissions.
And this capability extends beyond just identifying the agents, right? It applies to the products themselves through tokenized assets, which is incredibly powerful for things like the circular economy and the high-value resale market.
Oh, it revolutionizes provenance. Imagine a luxury handbag that has a digital twin, a token minted on the shared ledger when it is manufactured.
Okay.
When that physical bag is resold 3 years later on a secondary marketplace, an AI agent doesn't need to send photos to a human authenticator.
No.
It simply checks the cryptographic history of that token on the shared ledger. It instantly verifies the authenticity, confirms every previous owner, and automatically executes the resale transaction. It could potentially even route a royalty percentage back to the original brand via a smart contract.
It removes the friction of trust from the equation entirely.
Yeah.
You don't have to blindly trust the third-party marketplace, and they don't have to blindly trust you because you both implicitly trust the underlying cryptographic math governing the interaction.
Exactly. And looking at the entire landscape we've covered, there is a very clear, unavoidable progression for how modern businesses must evolve to survive this operational shift.
Right. It is a distinct three-stage journey based on the article. Stage 1, humans in the loop, We are acting as the ultimate bottleneck, manually approving every AI recommendation to build baseline psychological confidence.
Right.
Stage 2, humans on the loop. We step back from execution, define the overarching policies, lock the bumpers in place, and let the agents execute autonomously but strictly within our own internal company walls.
And the final destination, stage 3. Policy-driven autonomy across ecosystems. We utilize the programmable trust layer of Web3 SO, smart contracts, and shared ledgers to extend those operational rules and verify execution seamlessly across entirely different organizational boundaries.
Each stage is a necessary evolution of the one before it. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you are managing a global supply chain, building enterprise software, or simply buying a product online, you're watching the foundational architecture of global commerce shift right beneath your feet.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. The transition is moving us from a world of clumsily coordinated, disparate systems to a unified, continuously operating autonomous machine.
And the critical takeaway from Shish S's analysis is that things like blockchains, smart contracts, and tokenized assets are not merely speculative tech trends to keep an eye on.
They're not just buzzwords.
No, they are the mandatory structural next steps. They represent the only technologically viable foundation for scaling this level of AI economy with the clarity, consistency, and verifiable trust required by enterprise business.
It is a complete paradigm shift in how we define corporate operations. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. A scenario that pushes right past the edge of this current framework.
Ooh, okay. I am always ready for a curveball.
Okay, so if smart contracts and shared ledgers become the ultimate immutable rule books for these autonomous AI agents, what happens when a human architect simply makes a mistake setting the rules? If a corporate strategist encodes a fundamentally flawed pricing policy into a smart contract, and an autonomous agent flawlessly, mathematically executes that terrible strategy at lightning speed across an immutable blockchain where actions cannot be easily undone or reversed.
Oh, man.
Who actually takes the fall? The AI that followed the rules with absolute perfection, or the human who bolted the guardrails to the wrong side of the highway?
That is the multi-million-dollar accountability question that courts and boardrooms will be fighting over for the next decade.
Something to think about the next time you review the guardrails in your own operations. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking those tough questions, keep examining the systems around you, and as always, stay curious.